Salvete omnes, this is I'm Amelia, also known as TheMartianGeek. This is not a Let's Play video, but rather an ASM show-off video. But not just any ASM show-off video, mind you. No, this is an ASM show-off video with voice commentary. Specifically, showing off what you can do with Tessera, an all-new tool made by yours truly in Perl that can insert custom sprites into a Super Mario World ROM. If you don't know what custom sprites are, or even what Super Mario World or ROM hacks are, then why the heck are you watching this video? The point is, though, Tessera has a lot of functionality that simply does not exist in the older sprite tools. How much? For starters, in Mikey K's and Rami's Sprite Tool, you may recall, you can insert up to 192 regular sprites, 16 shooters, and 16 generators. That's all in decimal, of course. In Tessera, on the other hand, you can insert up to 823 regular sprites and over 200 of the other kinds. And that's assuming you don't overwrite any original slots, because Tessera can do that too. If, for example, you're not using the original Koopa Kid battles, then you don't need Sprite 29, so you can overwrite it with a custom sprite if you want. Also, the extra bits. You might remember that in the old sprite tools, when you went to set the extra bit, you'd either put in a 2 or a 3. And some sprites would use 3, all of them would use 2, and it depended on whether or not the sprite actually used the extra bit. Like you might see a sprite that said something like, Banana Throwing Baboon by SMW Hacksaw 1337. This is a baboon that throws bananas. Duh. Uses first extra bit. Yes. If the extra bit is clear, it will be a normal baboon. However, if the extra bit is set, it will be 20% cooler and will throw 4 bananas at a time instead of just 2. In Tessera, instead of having 1 extra bit, you basically have 32. Instead of having a choice between 2 possible behaviors, you have a choice between upward of 4 billion, actually, or milliard if you're outside the US. And they're not really extra bits so much as extra bytes. For each and every sprite, except the special kinds, like shooters and stuff, you can specify in the sprite list file whether the sprite uses 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 extra bytes. No need to make it use more than you need. And you can put in the values of those extra bytes in Lunar Magic, just like you could with the extra bits. Don't confuse extra bytes with extra property bytes, because extra property bytes are strictly for the CFG editor, and obviously you can't specify those in Lunar Magic. So for that reason, I choose to think of the old extra bits as being a high byte of the sprite number. Like instead of going from 00 to FF, it goes from 000 to FFF. You don't have to think of it that way if you don't want, but the tool and the ASM hacks handle it that way anyway, so why not? Tessera, I highly recommend using it over the old sprite tools. Not because it's mine, mind you, but because it's better. Simple fact. Although I have to admit, if somebody who was actually a competent programmer came along and made a better tool, one that could do everything Tessera could, but was a bit more stable, and not necessarily written in Perl, if necessary, I'd welcome them. I'm really not a very good programmer, so any bugs you find in the tool or the ASM I wrote for it, feel free to report them and I'll see what I can do to fix them. But I could sit here and explain what Tessera can do all day, but why explain it when you can demonstrate it? Alright, let's go. There's my save state. First sprite. Display level message. Sprite, that works with the VWF tool. Yeah, the extra bytes for that determine which message plays. Obviously, I already have the VWF patched. That's RPG hackers, not Rami's, because Rami's isn't a sprite, or isn't a patch. And we have these piranha plants. This is like the first sprite I ever made for Tessera. In fact, I actually made it before I made the tool, albeit in a different form. It uses 1 extra byte and 6 bits, and with those bits you can specify which direction it's facing, what color the stem is. The red ones come out even if the player's standing right next to them. And if it's a Venus fire trap, how many fireballs it spits. And also whether the stem is short or long. So that's a lot of functionality. 48 sprites reduced to 1. Or I guess 24 with the extra bit instead of 48. And this is a Panzer from Super Mario Bros. 2. Yeah, I have a cheat code on to make Mario always big, so I don't die halfway through my demonstration. This is a plant that spits fireballs. And you can choose whether it spits them in an arc, or straight up, and whether it moves or stays stationary. Just like in Super Mario Bros. 2, or sort of. This is a Koopa, but it's actually a custom sprite version. Basically, I just took Mikey K's Super Mario Bros. 3 Koopa and adapted it so that you could specify whether it would act like the one in Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World. This is a Birdo. And it's actually kind of broken right now. It's supposed to spit either fireballs or eggs, but the random number generator routine I used was kind of broken, so as soon as I get a random number generator routine that doesn't suck, this Birdo should work better. It acts like the one in Super Mario Bros. 2. You can specify whether it shoots eggs, fire, or both, and whether it shoots 1 or 3 projectiles. I think I actually broke that random number generator routine myself by trying to make it better. Classic Schlimmbesserung. And these are timed lifts. They use 2 extra bytes, and the extra bytes determine what kind of timed lift it is, and how much time is on it. That was a regular one, but it had 5 units of time instead of 4. This is an exploding one. See, when it gets down to 0, kaboom! Into an explosion of 2s. Yeah, okay, so maybe the graphics for the explosion aren't exactly correct, but that's easy enough to fix. I just didn't happen to have the right graphics file inserted in that slot. This is a bomber timed lift. Basically, you move it around with the controller buttons, and the time doesn't go down until you press Y. Instead of being a timer, it's an ammo counter. Press Y and it drops a bomb. And when it runs out of bombs, you can't move it anymore. This isn't really a timed lift so much as, well, basically you just step on it and it moves down a little bit, and when you get off it, the count decreases by 1, and it disappears after a while, after it gets down to 0. Kind of like the platforms in Yoshi's Island. The ones with the numbers on them. That's an exploding block. You can set it to explode into whatever normal or custom sprite you want. And I believe I just activated a parabeetle generator. That generates parabeetles. Amazing. I based this parabeetle off of Rami's, not Mikey K's, because I guess it was easier to retype his code. And this is obviously a P-switch. It acts like a normal P-switch, except that particular one can't be carried. You might notice there are some green parabeetles in there that fly faster. Yeah, the parabeetles, you can choose whether they're red or green, or how fast they fly and what their color is, and also whether they're normal ones or giant ones. The giant ones are 32 by 32, or like 32 by 29 or something, I don't know. I actually tried to make these act kind of like the giant parabeetles in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. You stand on it and it goes down. And that's kind of all it does. But you can write it and whatever. This is a yellow P-switch. Where's a better place to do this? Come back here, parabeetle. Yeah, you stomp on that one, and it turns all sprites on the screen into coins. Simply because that's what Davros's yellow P-switch did, and I based my P-switches off of his. Although the way the code's set up, you can make any colors of P-switch do whatever you want. You can actually have a different behavior for every sprite palette, and you can specify whether or not you can carry it. And these are NPCs. They just stand there or they walk back and forth. They can't be hurt by anything. But if you press up when you're next to him, they'll give you a message. A quick brown fox jumps over a lazy dog. Jack dogs love my big sphinx of quartz. Kumfjord veg box and pix quiz. Whatever. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, blah 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 blah. This is the same message that appeared at the start. Just like the display level message sprite, you can use the extra bytes on those guys to specify which message they'll display, and in their case, how far they'll walk. If they don't walk at all, they just stand there and face you. And what their tile map is. I think I gave you the option, I had the option to let it use up to 8 different tile maps and clipping sizes. Yeah, you can change the clipping size as well. That's so, like, you can have 32 by 32 NPCs, for example. And so you don't have to get right up in their face before they'll show you the message. If you want to be able to trigger the message from 4 tiles over or something, you can do that. That was an invisible vine. Just like an invisible mushroom, except, well, not a mushroom. And keys and doors. Colored keys and colored doors. Actually, all these do is just spawn the original key sprite, but change the palette. But it works. Basically, these doors can be set to have a variety of settings. You can set the palette, you can set whether it's locked or not, like these 2 doors are both locked. You can set its tile map and clipping size. Again, you get to choose from like 1 of 8 or so. And you can determine whether it just teleports you to the current screen exit, or teleports you to a specific level, or whatever. And if you want, you can decide, you can make it only unlock, at least assuming it's a locked door, if you unlock it with a specific color of key. And the keys themselves, you can actually set them to affect item memory. The keys and the doors, in fact. Basically, with item memory is used for things like coins in the original Super Mario World, to make it so that they don't reappear when you leave the level and come back. You'll notice that red key didn't reappear. I could have done the same thing with the red door if I'd wanted to. If I wanted that door to stay unlocked after getting unlocked once, I could have done that. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Forgot about the time limit. So anyway, different color key, different color door, and different screen exit. Time for some castle sprites. 3 ball and chains rotating around the same central point. That is actually a run once sprite, which is usually used to create more than one instance of some other sprite, and specify some attributes. That's what the triple rotating platform in the original game does. It doesn't actually act like 3 platforms. It basically just spawns 3 instances of the single platform, and then sets the angle that they're at. This is the same kind of thing. It creates 3 ball and chains, and spaces them out such that they'll be evenly spaced around a circle. And this is a fire bar. And that is a bigger fire bar. You can specify how fast these fire bars rotate, how many fireballs they'll contain, and which direction they go. I think that's all the options you get, but whatever. I use my own collision detection routine on these, and I'd like to think it actually works better than Super Mario World's original one. And this is another kind of fire bar. These are more true to the original Super Mario Bros. Ones. There you can see 3 of them rotating at different speeds, and a giant one over here. And those are 2 separate sprites, the 8x8 and the 16x16 fire bars. Nothing to see here, moving on. And these are fire pillars. Basically, they just stay on the ground and then they shoot up into a big pillar of flame. You can specify how far they go up in the extra bytes, although for some reason they don't work correctly if they go higher than 7 tiles. I do not know why that is, because I don't remember anywhere in the code specifying that, like, something had to be a positive value or anything like that, but whatever. You can spin jump. Maybe you can't spin jump on them. Okay, you can. And you get hurt if you touch them. Again, custom clipping routine. And this is a Doomship Flame from Super Mario Bros. 3. You can customize which direction it goes, and how long it stays out, and how long it stays, well, not out. These are supposed to be sort of synchronized, but yeah, there's a little bit too long of a delay on that one. Whatever. And this is a nipper from Super Mario Bros. 3. If you don't get too close to it, or don't try to jump over it, it just kind of stays there. Once you try to jump over it, it leaps up to grab you, or try anyway, and then it starts moving around, and every time you try to jump over it again, it tries to grab you again, and bite you. And, yeah, it kind of glitches up when it falls into lava. There's a CFG option that would prevent that, but I'm not sure if that might have other unforeseen effects. I don't know, we'll see. Another triple ball and chain there. And another nipper. Please fall into lava. Thank you. And this is a fire-spitting nipper. Same sprite, different behavior. There's only one of these in the original Super Mario Bros. 3, but it was there. Once you get too close to it, it spits 6 fireballs in an arc toward you. And if you don't move out of its range, it'll keep spitting. And we have a treasure chest, also from Super Mario Bros. 3. It appears once you get close enough to it, drops down to the ground, and when you touch it, you get a prize. It shows up and blinks like that, and then it actually spawns the sprite. I can't remember if I made it and I gave it the option to end the level or not, like Super Mario Bros. 3 does, and then they just see the open treasure chest sitting there. It's another uncarryable P-switch. But why is it there? Why? Because there's another door there. I didn't mention that you could also specify whether these doors are activated by P-switches and stuff. So now we're in a ghost house area, with reappearing boos spelling out, "You suck!" That isn't a hex edit, it's a disassembly inserted as a custom sprite. A disassembly of the reappearing and disappearing, well, actually it's a cluster sprite generator, which is basically the same thing as a run-once sprite, and you could make it do the same thing as a run-once sprite, except that it also enables cluster sprites. Cluster sprites are things like the background candle flames and the reappearing boos. Things that don't really need to have that much code, that are just kind of simple and have simple interaction. You can insert custom cluster sprite generators, and these are moving platforms, obviously. They're platforms, they move. And I don't know why those blocks disappear like that. One form of this platform also appears and disappears, on purpose. And that's the only sprite I've ever made to use all 4 extra bytes, actually. The one that doesn't appear and disappear uses 3. And you can specify how wide the platform is, what tile map it is, it has, how it moves, how far it moves, stuff like that. These blocks are the same sprite. Only 1 tile wide, and they fall when you step on them. And we're coming up on a springboard. Another sprite with plenty of extra byte options. You can specify its palette, and you can specify whether it has gravity or not. Obviously that one doesn't. And you can specify what it does when you bounce on it, such as go high into the air, just like what happened in Super Mario Bros. 1 when you jumped on the green springboards. And over here we have the infamous Yoku block, a staple of Mega Man games. It's a block that appears and disappears constantly. It's a very ominous sound effect. That's not a sound effect that was in the original Super Mario World. I inserted it with that music 405. 4.05, whatever. You can specify when they appear, when they disappear, what kind of tile map they use, stuff like that. And we have another springboard. These springboards have a lot of different possibilities, like this one can't be carried, but it also bounces you diagonally instead of just straight up, and it makes you teleport when you hit the screen boundary. And here's a Super Mario Bros. 3 style Lakitu. You can specify what sprites it throws, and how many of them it throws. And I should mention, this sprite demonstrates another feature of Tessera. Wait for it, wait for it. Oh yeah, and that's a poison mushroom. And it respawned! Magic! Yeah, if you wanted a Super Mario Bros. 3 Lakitu in the old Sprite Tool, you couldn't make it respawn. There was no way, unless you did something really crazy. However, I added a feature into Tessera to make it possible to make any sprite respawn, just like the Lakitu and Magic Koopa and stuff like that do. And this is a Shy Guy. Super Mario Bros. 2 style, obviously. Bye-bye, Lakitu. And that was a trigger sprite. Basically, it just makes something happen when all the sprites on the screen are gone. That one spawned a pipe. And we have a message box that utilizes the VWF system and uses the extra bytes to determine which message to display. And another Lakitu. Oh, that was the same one that respawned. This is a... Okay, here's another Lakitu. Whoops. And this is a multi-bullet bill shooter. It's like the shooters you sometimes saw on the airships in Super Mario Bros. 3. Basically, it kind of rotates, although it doesn't have actual graphics, so you have to do that yourself. But it shoots 2 bullets in opposite directions, and it changes the directions it shoots. There's a Sniffit, also Super Mario Bros. 2 style, and also with a projectile that doesn't have correct graphics. I guess I killed that Lakitu too soon, but it was supposed to throw like 3 different kinds of sprites. And that's a bullet bill shooter that simply shoots in 2 directions and doesn't change which directions it shoots. Here's a giant Sniffit, which shoots bullet bills. And here's a hopping Sniffit. You can customize what the Sniffits do, what palette they use, whether they hop or walk or whatever. And another type of springboard. This one has a number on it. Yeah, you might notice that the number goes behind Mario, yet the springboard goes in front of him. Well, that's because apparently when a sprite is being carried, the OAM addresses it uses, which determine like where the sprite tiles go on the screen and stuff like that, what color they are. Apparently Nintendo thought it would be a good idea to hard-code the OAM addresses of carried sprites, which I suppose was done so that they could go in front of Mario, but it also meant that any carryable sprites you make, you can't have more than 4 tiles without it messing up like that. Unless, of course, you were to screw with Mario's OAM as well. It's a minor technicality. But you might notice the 3 there. Obviously that has some significance. Every time you jump on this thing, the number counts down, and if it gets to 0, the springboard disappears. And Goal Sphere. Might have noticed that one actually had gravity, unlike the original. Yeah, it uses 1 extra byte. You can choose what palette it uses, which exit it sets, normal or secret, and whether it has gravity, and whether you walk after touching it, and what music it plays. That one activated the normal exit, I believe, and obviously it was green, and it had gravity, and you don't walk after touching it. And the countdown, time messed up because of my timer. Well, that's it. I actually do have like 1 more sprite that I didn't show off, but that was because I had all these sprites in the ROM intending to make the video like 2 weeks ago, which also explains some bugs you might see in the sprites. I've probably fixed some of them since then. But the point is, those sprites are all included with the download of Tessera, and you can use them at your leisure. Just a small sampling of the many things you can do with the tool. So, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.